Council and Committee of the Whole meeting for June 4th, 2024. Bienvenue à notre réunion du Conseil pour 4 juin. We will open this evening with Councillor Rivard and an acknowledgement, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As we meet today, I would like to take a moment to recognize the importance of the land on which we are gathered. The municipality of West Nipissing respectfully acknowledges that we are located on the homelands of the Anishinaabe peoples, on the traditional territory of the Nipissing, Temagami, and Okies First Nations, covered by the Robinson-Huron Treaty. We honor and recognize their historical connection to the land and value their significant contributions in shaping and strengthening our communities. We do this to reaffirm our commitment and responsibility towards reconciliation and improving our understanding of local Indigenous peoples and their cultures.
Thank you. Next, I will take any declarations of pecuniary interest. I would like to note that I have filled out the paperwork for our clerk on item 6.4.4, mayor's car allowance, and that will be online with the rest. And when we get to that portion of the evening, I will pass the chair to Councillor Restoul. Next up, we have an addendum.
It is moved by Councillor Restoul and seconded by Councillor Tessier. Be it resolved that the addendum for the meeting of Council and Committee of the Whole held on June the 4th, 2024 be adopted as presented.
Any questions or comments? All in favor? Carried.
It is moved by Councillor Tessier and seconded by Councillor Restoul. Be it resolved that the agenda for Council and Committee of the Whole meeting held on June the 4th, 2024 be adopted as presented.
Questions or comments? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. We have no delegations or petitions this evening, so we'll move directly into the Committee of the Whole. 5.1.1 under General Government, we have a draft tax collection policy for discussion. The draft policy has been included in your packages, and I will pass the floor to Mr. Barco.
And I will quickly pass the financial floor to Ms. Craddock.
Thank you. So we don't have a formal policy right now. So this policy that's in front of you kind of captures what the steps that our staff undertakes through billing and then collections and then right through tax sale if necessary. Most of this is actually really legislated, right? So the Municipal Act sort of guides how tax billing must go out. It guides how tax collection can occur. It guides how the tax sale process works. And so that's what the very part is that, here's what we're doing to provide some guidance, understanding that if the legislation changes at the provincial level, that will always be the prevailing way that we do things. And if there's any disconnect between this and the provincial level, until we fix this policy, that the provincial legislation does prevail. It gives a few definitions of things. It talks about the difference between interim tax billing, annual tax billing, supplementary tax billings. It takes you through, sort of like I said, through the collections and how we deal with different payment types. What happens if you have been in arrears with us? What happens if your payments bounce? Those types of things are all sort of covered in this policy. I think it's fairly sort of laid out. So I guess that's sort of the overview I have, Madam Mayor, and I'll hand it back to you.
Thank you very much. I will open the floor to questions or comments from our members. Councillor Donnie.
Madam Mayor, thank you. Do we charge an admin fee for all the work that incurs into getting all the administrative paperwork, billing, follow-ups, and so on? Is there something in this or in the municipal law that permits us to do this or doesn't allow us to do this?
If I may, so in the billing process, no, the billing is just part of our overall cost of doing business. The tax sale portion, and it's not something that's on our fees and charges yet, but I will come back to at some point for some admin fees to go with our fees and charges. Because once we're in the tax sale process, we can recover reasonable administration fees, and the tax sale process can be a lot of work across a lot of staff. And so, but for the regular billing, the regular dealing with people's taxes, the regular questions, that's just part of what we do.
So, question. Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the only issue I have is that some people are going to drag this on to the point of the tax sale, and then they might come in and they'll say, okay, here we go, I'll take care of my, my tax arrears. And you spent days and days maybe. So I think, or I'd like to see if we can make a recommendation to actually try to recoup some of those costs, because if you're an abiding citizen and you pay your taxes, there's no additional cost to the municipality, but those that don't, there might be. So
I'm not sure the law will allow you, for you, Madam Mayor, but what I could tell you is that those people who play that game are charged 1.5% per month in interest. So it's, we do collect it in a different way. We collect a significant amount of interest by those people who are in arrears paying taxes. So it's to your advantage to pay your taxes on time.
And if I can add to that, so if we get to the point where we've got, we've registered the property. So again, where we've started the registration process and we're now going through multiple letters as far as the registration process. In that time, again, we do add those fees back to that account. So if you let it go as far as that's registering your property, we're going to add a whole lot of cost to your account potentially, if you drag it that last year as well.
so you don't think that there's a need to add an admin fee at the moment?
I don't think we've got the ability to.
I don't think you, legislation does not allow it.
Okay, thank you.
It's, if I may follow up on Councilor Bonnier's inquiry, the 1.25, is that a number, percentage on the late penalty rate? Is that something that's legislated provincially, or is that discretionary with the municipality? Because if you follow along that there can't be an admin fee, if the late penalty was slightly higher, it could result in a higher.
So the answer is both. So the 1.25 is the max,
Okay.
but the municipalities do have flexibility underneath that line if they want it to be lower.
Okay, thank you. Okay, other questions or comments? Councillor Tessier?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. Through the benefit manual, there was a policy regarding delinquent accounts. So I saw that that was incorporated in this policy. Are there any other policies or bylaws that have been incorporated in this policy as well?
Not directly. No, you're quite right. The delinquent account one is just a very sort of 3 lines. It was on our list of policies to review. So that one will go away with this. This policy does touch on things like, or it does interact with our interim tax bylaw and our final tax bylaw, which set that penalties and interest rate. It does interact with our fees and charges bylaw, so it does interact with these, but it doesn't replace them.
Questions or comments? Oh, Councillor. Okay, that's it. So if there are no other recommendations or questions in regards to if we can tweak the policy, staff will be looking for direction to bring this back for approval at the next meeting. Okay, so I'll just take a quick show of hands that will bring this back for the next meeting. Thank you very much. Okay. That is the one and only under general government for this evening. We're moving on to 5.2 to emergency measures and public safety committee. For that, I will pass the floor to the chair of emergency measures, Councillor St. Louis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So as Madam Mayor mentioned, under 5.2.1, we do have an item of 2 new stop signs request. One at Queen and Main and the other one at William and Main. And I will pass it to our Director of Infrastructure, Ms. Henning, to provide us with additional information.
Okay, so I think this request provides a great opportunity to talk a little bit about stop signs. So if you guys will bear with me, I'm gonna try to hopefully give everyone a little information on why we should be making decisions either to put or not to put a stop sign in, because stop signs can be very controversial, as I think we all are aware. So these particular locations when we look at OTM Book 5, which is the Ontario Traffic Manual, gives us our information on why we should put stop signs in, where we should put any signs in, stop signs being one of the signs. So these intersections don't meet the traffic or the collision warrants for it. There's just not enough traffic at these sites. So I know people often think, well, we can use stop signs for speed control, slow people down. And OTM Book 5 is very clear that stop signs are not to be used for speed control, because what ends up happening when you start using stop signs for speed control is that people end up stopping and then either speeding up between intersections. So you actually create a speed problem in other areas. Another thing that it can cause if you have too many stop signs is you get driver complacency. So there's been a lot of studies on this in recent years. Too many signs, people just start ignoring them. They'll either roll them or they'll just blow them completely. And when you have a situation where people are doing that, especially at a four-way stop, you create an illusion of pedestrian safety. So someone may think, well, it's a four-way stop, I'm fine, I can cross the road here. Meanwhile, there's a vehicle coming, it's gone through the 10 stop signs on this street already, and it's just going to ignore and go on through, and then you get a pedestrian collision. It also really increases your risks of rear end collisions. So there are, there's pros and there's cons to stop signs. As a municipality, I think we should be consistent with the provincial guidelines, because if you're driving in Sturgeon Falls or you are driving in Barrie, you should be driving in the same traffic conditions, signs, traffic lights, everything should be the same to meet that driver expectation so people understand what they're committing to. Another thing that you need to consider when you're installing stop signs is that for every stop sign that an emergency vehicle has to go through, you delay their response time by 7 seconds. So the more stop signs we have, the slower emergency services are to get there, and to just barely impede the flow of traffic. That's why we don't want stop signs just everywhere. So if anyone has any questions on that, I will be happy to answer them. Yeah.
Perfect, thank you. Any questions? Comments? I'll say you on.
Thank you. So one of the reasons this was brought up to me was in regards to the additional traffic that is in the downtown core, since we do have construction on King. And also with the construction starting on Front Street, could we look at least temporary stop signs for those two intersections so that we may control the amount of traffic? Because there are some line of sights which are not too clear, and the downtown core is busier than I think it's ever been. And there's also cars and vans and delivery trucks that are parked everywhere. So it would at least facilitate during the construction months to try to help out those two intersections for the whole downtown core at the moment, and maybe reassess once the construction over, if there is still an issue with the volume of traffic that might have increased, and maybe give us a chance to do a traffic count during that time at the same time.
Okay, so to address that, yes, temporary signs during construction. Right now, we do have more traffic on Main Street because we've got a section of King Street closed. There is likely that traffic is, some of it is rerouting down Main Street. So temporary signs, absolutely, that's something we can look into. Whether we want them at both of those intersections, I would think possibly only at one, but if council wants them at both, I don't think it's going to make a huge difference which way you go with that. In terms of traffic counts, we did do the traffic counts that I have for these streets were done last year. So I don't believe that if we did, well, we would not do a traffic count with all the construction going on because it would give us a false number. We want to do it during normal conditions. But since they were just done last year, I don't believe that we'd see any real difference in the traffic counts. And just to give you an example of what the traffic counts are. So yeah, one block over on King Street at both William and Queen, we have four-way stops on King Street. So both of those intersections have really comparable traffic counts. So just to give you some numbers for that, on King Street, you have about 3,000 vehicles per day. And on Main Street, you only have 1,200. So we're less than half on Main Street from what we are on King Street for your traffic counts. So even if we were to redo those counts, I don't think you would see redo those counts under normal conditions when we don't have, King Street closed and Front Street under construction. I don't think you would see those numbers changing significantly enough to warrant a four-way stop at either of those intersections.
Follow-up questions, Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
You have the counts for King and William and King and Main and William also?
Yes. So King and William
Yep.
is 3,000. So it's done per street. So King from John to William is 3,000. King from William to Queen is 3,000. King from Queen to Front Street is 32,000.
3,200.
Sorry, 3,200. We have real problems if we're that high, yes. And then on Main Street.
Yep.
So Main Street from William to Queen is 1,200. Main Street from Queen to Highway 17 is 1,284.
Thank you.
It's just, I'd like to be acknowledged by the chair.
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
however.
Thank you.
No, sorry. Hold on,
I
Madam Mayor.
just have, I guess,
Madam Mayor.
for my question, because I've heard the same comments that Councillor Carney has gotten from some of the business owners there. And I think my main concern is the sight lines on that road, because the parking on both sides of the street, more so at Queen than at William, but it is oftentimes a difficult intersection to cross. Like, you really kind of have to nose out to make sure that you're not going to be running into oncoming traffic coming north from the highway. So like, my safety concern is more about the sight lines, and I think we've all experienced that intersection where you have to be very careful, because oftentimes both sides of the streets are lined with cars, and it really does impact the visibility of oncoming traffic.
Yeah, I will agree with that. I took my little car and drove through these intersections a few times this week just to experience, for myself and see what they were like. We do have like a delineated line painting there that doesn't allow cars to park right up to the stop sign. So if cars are parked properly, I do agree there is kind of a bit of nosing out that you do have to do at those intersections. You do have to go, cautiously through, but we also have that in a lot of our intersections. So whether we want to completely reevaluate sight lines in town and reduce the amount of parking, that's a council decision. But I don't think stop signs are going to improve that issue.
Councillor Tessie.
Thank you, Councillor Sangui. Following up, I had that question that Madam Mayor had. So I did drive, and yeah, you have to sneak up some with the lines that are marked no parking. Is it possible just for that main street that from the north and the south that maybe 2 parkings can be no parking to allow better vision for the cars when they come, so we're not sneaking forward?
If that's something that council wanted, then that would be a decision that you can make. We can look at like redoing the line painting in those areas. But I will warn you that it's not just those intersections where you have that. So I guess it depends how much parking do you want in the downtown core? And like, do you want to start eliminating parking in the downtown core?
as
Go
a
ahead.
follow-up question. So we could maybe have it like a pilot project for that area, because I know King, there's four-way stops, so those are okay. And so just,
No, no, my recommendation, listening to the suggestion of Councillor Gagne and your concern is, I think that that what we can do during the construction time is to put temporary stop signs. And let's look at that and see what that does for a while. So we're not saying no to stop sign, we're not saying no to temporary stop signs. What we're saying is there's no warrant for full stop signs. So if council wishes, the director can have a look at temporary, and then we can examine what that does for the situation prior to, because I can tell you, Councillor Tessier, unfortunately, I've been here a long time, and the parking downtown is at a premium. We feel that we can walk an additional 50 feet, but the residents have been very fortunate to be able to park very close to the commercial establishments that they want to attend to, and we'd want to be very careful to limit that.
Thank you. Councillor Duval?
Thank you, Councillor Sanders. We Mr. Barbo kind of took what I was going to mention there, but I was thinking about the downtown core and those businesses. To take away an extra parking spot is not really something that I think we'd have to consult with them a little more first, see what they would think about losing a prime location for their business. But I'm in favor of the temporary stop signs during the construction season, especially at William and Maine. In Maine, I don't know, I think the sites are a little bit better there, to be honest, because you have that parking spot. But the William and Maine, if everyone's going downtown and taking William, there may be slightly more traffic there during the construction season. So that would be my suggestion. But in terms of like permanent stop signs too, after listening to your examples as to where an intersection warrants a stop sign, now I'm thinking of all the intersections that maybe shouldn't have stop signs, but that already do, maybe before your time and before this knowledge that was brought to us. But I think once you have stop signs, it's much harder to remove them if they're permanent, because then there's that preconceived notion that you have to stop at this location. So if you remove it, then it could make it dangerous for others in those intersections. So just talking about other intersections, but for this intersection would be temporary on William and Maine is my idea.
Thank you. Councillor Tessier?
thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, do we know what type of collisions that the OPP identified? There were some collisions, but what?
No, the OPP told me that there was no significant collision history there, so they didn't have anything on file for that intersection. They suggested that I reach out to our bylaw as well, and they didn't supply me with any collision information.
I guess it's just significant, so it's either yes or no.
Well, I mean, sometimes there's things that like the OPP, I guess, doesn't always have on their reports, but
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? So I guess what,
Oh, sorry,
go ahead,
just
Mayor.
one. I would be in favor of doing a temporary, as Councillor Rivard said, doing a temporary during the construction season, but with an eye to see whether it's warranted in the future. Again, I would say specifically, as Councillor Rivard said, at William and Queen, because of the sight lines and the heavy traffic, 8 months a year around the chip stands, that it might be something. So perhaps we bring it back after the season before they're removed, as to whether or not we want to keep one or both of those as a permanent location.
Any other comments? Councillor Duval?
Just to correct, I had only mentioned the William and Maine,
Mm.
not the Queen and Maine,
Okay.
but we'll leave it up to a vote.
Councillor Rescoe?
I just wanted to say I appreciate the information provided and some of the background as to logically or technically why we could or not, or should or shouldn't, because I don't think we've had something as in depth as that. So appreciate the information to help us consider the request. I'm just curious, and I'm going back to I don't know if it's too soon or not, but Catch Bay. And the stop signs there, and we had talked about lights or different things, because, again, technical question, because it's such a condensed area and you're going a block and a new stop that quick, you can't, I don't think you can really put like advance notice that there's a new stop sign. So how does that work? Is it just a stop sign on a stick that gets a base, or is there a light to, let people know that it's new?
So for the temporary signs?
Yeah.
So yeah, no, typically when we put up a temporary sign, like there's one right now at Holditch and John Street for the construction that we've put up. So we don't give an advance. We just put the temporary sign up.
Right. Okay.
Anyone else? Comments? Bellarine? Councillor Bellarine?
Thank you, Councillor St. I was just wondering, has there ever been a one-way street like in North Bay explored? Just curious.
I don't believe that has ever been explored. West Nixon.
Thank you.
Well, if you're interested, there was a lot of talk around the chip stands back in the day. We're talking about 10, 12 years, and that's where council decided to put the no left turns and all of that. But there were some options that were put forward there. And again, the business community were affected and all of that. So, but there was a discussion there, Councillor Cobb.
Thank you.
Anyone? Councillor Gagné?
Thank you, Conseiller St. Louis. So my recommendation with the work that's coming on Front Street would be to put 2 temporary stop signs on William and also on Queen and Main, just because there's a lot of people going to reroute that traffic for the whole summer month. So I think we're going to have a lot of traffic that usually goes on John that will be going on William, and we have lots that probably will go on Queen that kind of bypass the whole construction area. So I would recommend 2 temporary signs. It's going to help the downtown core, at least at the moment, for the summer months. So that's the suggestions that I'd like to put forward. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any other comments? So I would like to obviously offer some comments. First of all, thank you for all the information. I too agree that putting temporary signs is a good idea during the construction time. However, once that construction is completed, we have individuals that are tasked with doing the evaluations that they have done and the information that they provided us. And if right now the information that is being provided to us as a council is that we don't put permanent signs there, I think that's something that we need to follow. Not hashing back what Councillor Restoul said, the recommendation for the 3-way stop in Cache Bay was something that was recommended by the MTO, something recommended by the police, something recommended by the fire department, and something that was recommended by a director of infrastructure. So that's why we followed through with it. That's why we did it. I think we need to accept that. If the recommendation to us right now is that no, the amount of traffic doesn't warrant permanent stop signs, then I think that's something we have to accept. But I do agree 100% with the amount of construction, and not just now. Who knows how long this construction might last? If it's throughout the winter and the summer, next summer, then yes, definitely a temporary stop sign is definitely something valid. So probably with a show of hands, do everybody agree with a recommendation of adding some 4-way stops to those temporary 4-way stops to those areas? Sounds good. So we'll move that forward, and we'll go with the temporary stops until the completion of the construction. Now, on that note, however, I believe this is the construction going all the way to Ethel, correct? Is that the same work? Is that?
Yes.
Yes. So once the construction is now down at Ethel, construction's not done. However, would we agree that those 4-way stops are removed because those roads, the construction, in my mind, at King and John and whatnot is done and it's completed if we're now down at Ethel. However, I'm not sure if it's going to be all done in one swoop But if it's not, and if it's done in sections, I don't think we need to keep those four-way stops there until the completion.
Well. Sorry,
Does that make sense?
Yeah. I was just gonna say, I think at that point, staff can probably determine what the best course of action is, like once the construction is not impacting traffic patterns in the downtown core, you'll be aware, because there's Front Street construction as well. So it's not just the King Street construction, in my mind.
So in my mind, likely if we are putting up these temporary signs, they'll probably be there for the entire summer construction season because we have that Front Street project going. So even once we get off of, once they will finish John Street and start moving down King, so John Street won't still be closed. But you're right, that Front Street construction will be continuing throughout the summer. So we're likely to see some different traffic patterns than normal. And I think we'll probably just leave those there for the rest of the summer.
Everybody's okay with that? Perfect. I'll pass it back to you, Madam.
Thank you so much. Good job. We have, moving on to 5.3, community service, our last item on our committee of the whole. I will pass the floor to Councilor Rivard, our chair.
Thank you, Mayor. So tonight we have to discuss an alligator boat and field. An agenda item request was presented by Councilor Nickel regarding an alligator boat. There's some nice photos in the agenda package showing the boat, but I'll pass it over to Councilor Nickel to provide more information on the request.
Councilor Rivard. As you guys can see, there's a few volunteer groups in field that expressed interest in relocating an alligator boat from Monettville to Field, where the other displays are by the municipal boat launch. It originally was at the old mill site and it moved with one of the owners, and now it's in Monettville. So they would first like permission to relocate it on municipal property. And if that is approved by council, they would second like to request a concrete pad and temporary security fencing while the volunteers work on it. They have people lined up to weld, sand, paint, and make it safe, but we just need the temporary fencing while the work is being completed there. And then the estimated concrete pad would be 12 by 8 feet. And I don't have any rough numbers on how much those cost, but I thought we could bring it here and see what the appetite is. Go from there. So if anybody has questions or comments, I could try to answer them. I have a list of answers from the groups. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Nickel.
Well, I think this has been discussed now for a few years, and it's, certainly the residents of Field would like to see it move forward. Obviously, from a staff perspective, we would have certain questions with respect to liability. Who owns the asset, and then once we own the asset, there's a whole series of protocols that we have to follow with respect to occupational health and safety and liability mitigation, or the kind of work that you're suggesting. The pad, if you're asking to create a pad and fence it in, and then work within that fencing, and you want it on municipal property to do that, the question I would ask you and your group is, are you expecting us to create a pad so that you can fix it, and then, or create a pad once it is fixed and it's fixed on a pad near where the river is?
Create a pad first, so then it can be relocated onto the pad and then worked on.
Okay.
Within the pad.
So there are some costs to that, in addition to some of the liability that would be incurred with who is doing some sanding on a rusty boat. It's a cool boat, by the way. It really would look nice. It's a great idea. It's just that how do we do it? And the volunteering of labor is a good thing, but as I indicated, there's some liability with welding, sanding, cutting yourself, blah, 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 on our property. How do we acknowledge that? What's the training, the health and safety training? What is the qualifications of the people doing it? So I think that from my perspective, I'd like to see a decision and I'll upset staff. I'd like to see it happen. But I think that we need to work and come up with a little bit more specifics. And maybe there's an area that's already paved or an area where it could be worked, which is what they kind of want anyway. Then the protection of, of the asset from a damage, because we've seen that even on Front Street with Stella. Remember Stella? And, and the damage that was happening. So there's there's still a lot of questions with respect to how we would do it to limit it. In some ways, it's easier if there's a group that basically take the boat and handle things on their own, then we don't have to be the sticks in the mud and then just offer us a clean boat. And then it's a council decision to fund a pad where it's going to be in its final resting place. But if we're going to be involved from a liability perspective, we'd have to look at it, Councillor Nickel, with respect to how we mitigate that and manage it in an appropriate way.
Can I ask you a question?
Thank you. Yeah.
So if we were to work on it at a private residence location and then bring it back to ask if it is up to standards to be on municipal property, that's an option.
It wouldn't be a discussion that we would have here. I mean, I'm being liability averse, of course, but certainly if somebody, let's say the individual, who owns the boat now and is willing to donate it, basically would have refurbished the boat in the field and whatever and said, hey, I'd like to give it back to you all nice and clean, then we would be looking at all of that and doing that. So, it's really the transition time. And then the other questions we would have to have or raise to the public is, be ready for, the ongoing maintenance of it as a councillor. It's not that we don't get into things, because obviously when we grow as a community, there's going to be ongoing maintenance. However, we do know that the more assets we acquire, the more stretched we are. But yeah, Councillor Nickel, my quick answer would be if everything was ready and then we received it, we would have a lot less say in it at this table and as staff. But I'd be prepared to work with the director and yourself and just have those kind of discussions and find out what the best path going forward is. Because I do know there's an excitement and interest in your ward for it.
Thank you. Councillor Sandy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Personally, I think it's a great idea, and I mean, anything that we can beautify our municipality, that's a great thing. However, what I'm worried about is what kind of message are we gonna send the rest of our residents if we do this when we said no to the mermaid, right? Because the mermaid, correct me if I'm wrong, we were asked to put that mermaid down at the marina on a cement pad, and our answer was no because of liabilities and danger. So if we put the boat there on the municipal property, then are we gonna again be liable and all that? What are we saying to the other residents that ask for that and we say no, but then we say yes to that? That's my fear. And I mean, we can't live in those fears, and I understand that, but.
So I was intimately involved with Stella, and Stella had really sharp hair.
Yes.
Marina, Stella was the other bird. Yeah, Marina had really sharp hair, and Marina was living downstairs for a while, and we showed a lot of the councillors some of the liability that existed with it. It was also an interesting idea to put Marina, but where they wanted Marina, it wasn't feasible for us. And then we had a solution for Marina that wasn't feasible for them. So that's kind of a very specific situation, and this is a similar situation, but not as specific. Without looking at the asset to see, even after it's softened and there's no jagged edges and this, that, and the other thing, what the liability is, we'd have to wait and see. I mean, there are other things that are on that land right now, so, but we'd have to have a look at it. But certainly, the marina aspect of it was a very fragile piece of artwork. For one, it was a piece of artwork, and so we were respectful of the artist as well. And two, the locations they wanted just wasn't feasible. It would have cost us so much to keep it out of harm's way that we recommended putting it, on a outcropping on, in the, down from the power dam, and they didn't want that.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, you still have your hand up?
I said, I would think the only concern I have is in regards to the logistics. So I would hate to see the people of Field go to the trouble because they have secured the boat for free. They have arranged transportation for free. And so if they get the boat to a private property where the work is being done until it's deemed appropriate to go on to municipal property without any guarantee from the municipality that once that work is done, that there will be a home for it. I think that's where I see the concern is that this work and the trouble of them getting it there and doing all this work is being done without them being assured that if they get it here and if they do the work, there will be a place for it to go. So what if somebody ends up with this boat in their barn and then it comes back to council and council goes, you know what? It's not a good idea. So I think that's my only concern is that for the volunteer groups to kind of move the project forward, they would need some kind of assurance or some kind of plan or a decision from council that would, once the work is done, that it is a project that we would support. And that's where I just see the issue.
Thank you. You were done, right?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. In response to that, I would just like to mention that similar to these other projects that we've seen, they also undertook that of bringing it to a private property, making sure it was at a level that it was okay, and then came forward with the proposal to put it on municipal property. So just something like this, looking at the photo, I'm definitely for it, like what Councillor St. Louis said, and Councillor Nickel mentioned, like it would be neat to put at the waterfront, but just looking at it, I have no clue if there are some of those liability issues or concerns similar to what we had with another piece of art, won't mention the name, that was gonna go down by the marina. And it's kind of, you don't know if those windows, right, if people are able to climb on it, so that's why it's kind of, I believe it would have to go through that process of going to someone's property, the work being done, and definitely support that the work is being done, but the assurance, I'm not sure if I'd like to add that assurance as a council, just in case it comes back to us at the time of proposal and we determine, oh geez, this is a very big liability for the municipality, we would need more work to be done, and then you're kind of in that back and forth there as well, so that kind of worries me there as well.
So on that, I guess what I would propose to council is to just flesh it out a little bit more. We have an agenda request. Happy to work with Councillor Nickel and our volunteers and Mr. Foley and I. Go out and have a look at it and create more of a fulsome document on issues. There's not just the liability to the resident, but to give a blank check saying if you do all of this and liability is okay, we're going to do it. You still have to be aware that you approve a budget, and so a big boat like that, what's the weight, this, that, a gravel base, a cement base, how does that look? How does it look pretty? Ballpark, you're going to be looking at a $20,000 investment just for the base, and then if they're willing to relocate it to private land, are they willing to relocate it then to the base, or is it our cost? So we'd have to have a little bit more detailed discussions with your residents, and then we'd be happy to come back and report to council at a future meeting, depending on how quickly we can have that chat. But I think Mr. Pooley and I need to take a road trip with our boots, go out in the field and have a look at it. And if one of us doesn't come back, that's another story.
What's that, Bessie?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. So this item, once it's on municipal property, would be considered under the donation and memorial program policy as far as inheriting it. Yeah.
I'm passing it on to the handout.
Mr. Chair, if I may, that was something I was going to suggest. We do have a donations policy, so whether the current owner donates it to the municipality, part of the donation policy, the owner of the said property acknowledges that if the property is damaged in the future, vandalized, that the municipality is not responsible to necessarily repair it or replace it. So it's no different than donating a bench at the Minnehaha Bay or at the museum, or having a donation of a tree. If the tree does not survive, it's not the municipality's responsibility to replace it. So this would be the case as part of our donation policy.
So you got it.
Thank you, maybe just a few suggestions to maybe cut costs to make this project a reality is maybe looking at putting timberjack tires to sit it on, if it's possible, or even hemlock, because usually big barges that are sitting on hemlock, and hemlock has a very long life expectancy. And the other thing is maybe looking at anchoring or securing it, because we know the water gets high there sometimes in the spring. So just to make sure we don't lose the assets once we have it. And I would like to know what the cost would be to paint it, because it won't last forever, so it's probably going to have to be painted eventually. So it'd be good to know what the current cost once we paint it, plus maybe additional cost, because everything is going up every year. So maybe if we can take that into account in the exploration of a potential project. But cool though. Glad it's from field also at the same time. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Restel, did I see your hand?
She sure did.
Councilor Restel.
You, Mr. Chair, I think there's lots of good comments going around the table. I think it's neat that it's a historical piece that was in field way back when. It's nice to see that it's been, you know, preserved to some degree somewhere, and it's not gone to a scrapyard. It can't be brought back. That was, some of my questions were kind of asked earlier as well. I think well, first of all, I'll say I appreciate that this is coming to us first to have discussion rather than getting to a final product and then coming back here where some situations may have been that way in the past. I agree with the item that we won't name that was going to be placed at the marina. But that was I saw it myself, and I thought that there was, especially with kids and mermaids, and there was a lot of sharp edges on there. It was very dangerous. But I think we're at the early stage here where we can look at this and see what we need to do to make sure it's safe. But I think I appreciate, again, I'm going to repeat myself, I appreciate the process. So we're having input now, we can have decisions, we can have some stages built in to see how we get to the final product. But I think it's neat idea. And one of the things I'd like, and I think it was mentioned, was if there's a group that's willing to do the work on it, my preference would be do it on your property, get it ready there where we're not having it on municipal property before it's ready. If there's welding and all that kind of stuff involved, there's some danger associated with that. And then with the first request was putting up safety fencing around while all of this is done. I think if it could be done off-site or on a private property, we're avoiding those costs. So we would be temporary, but still costs. And then I agree with the CEO. It's at the end of the day when everything's finalized, if we do go ahead, it is a budget issue. We will have to have discussions on what's associated with. Appreciate the other options that Councillor Gagne mentioned that might be a little bit more cost effective and might be more visually pleasing, I guess, on a cement slab. If we could look at something that's better, not better, but a different presentation for it. And just the comment with raising water levels, and this is where dad jokes get in. It could be a safety vessel too if it gets too high. But keep that last comment out of the minutes. No, I'm open to seeing some stages, seeing some more information, more research, and come back with next steps.
Thank you, Councillor Russell, and for the joke. It was good as well. Conseiller Tessie, j'ai vu ta main, mais conseiller Farin l'avait en premier.
Go ahead.
No, you.
Okay.
I have a question.
I love the idea of this. I think it's a great symbol of our marine heritage.
And I think it's a great opportunity. And I'd like to find ways to make it happen rather than, I know there are a lot of reasons, not to do it, but I'd like to find ways to do it. I just want to ask Councillor Nicol, does the group have a plan B, or basically if they don't, if they don't get a positive answer from the municipality, is the project just going to die? Or do you think that they want to restore it regardless? I mean, I'd just like to get an idea of where their head is at.
There's a couple options as a backup plan, but wanted to start with this, kind of go from here and see where we end up. And I appreciate everybody's comments and suggestions. I'm sure I'll be back with a different idea in a couple months. There's potential. I think it can still happen.
Thank you, Councillor Tessie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The boat that they want to place, is there dimension as for height? Is that something that can be obtained as the height?
Aaron and I actually checked it out together, but we didn't have.
No, we
couldn't really get close.
Tromped through the high grasses and took the pictures together. It's a cool looking boat. The width of it is such that it can be floated on a regular transport. Like it doesn't need a wide loader or anything like that, and that's been confirmed. But as far as exact dimensions, as far as width, length, and height, we don't have that information.
Yeah, I'm just concerned with the height as far from the floor to the main, just to see, we'll know people will climb on it. And there's another boat that's currently on the picture below. Is there another boat that's as a artifact?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And how has that one survived? Any,
I could kind of answer that. That boat, I don't know what the history of the boat is, but it is a memorial for Wayne LaBelle, right? There's a plaque there. Is that correct, Councillor Nicol?
Yes.
And it's been there, and the people go in it in the spring. There's wood cutouts of historical figures that come out in the spring, and they go and sleep in the fire station in the winter.
but the cutouts are on the grass beside the boat?
No, they're in the boat.
You can climb in the boat?
Like, yeah, so it looks like the people are in the
Okay.
boat, and it's,
Hasn't been vandalized to
No.
my knowledge.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to, it's difficult to tell from the picture the scale of it because I've never seen it. I know it's a concern, can kids climb on it, et cetera, but to me, it doesn't look any higher than the climbing structures that we provide in parks for kids to climb on. Maybe we overly concerned about things like that.
Well, to your point, and there's a lot of specific questions. I think with what we have here, if council wants to formally just direct staff to, work, with the group, get a little bit more info, come back with some options, look at some of those issues, and come up with a plan, a reasonable recommendation to council, and at least bring it back. And then, I'd be happy to get personally involved if you like.
Thank you. Yeah, so from what I gathered from that discussion is there's a real appetite to see this boat eventually get to a municipal property and kind of display our heritage and a little bit more history of that area. It would be pretty neat, in my opinion. But as is mentioned by Mr. Barbeau and a few other people, there are some slight concerns that maybe will need to be looked at or just understand the logistics of it. I really enjoyed Councillor Restol's comment. You pretty much nailed everything there, I think. So would we need a resolution?
yeah,
for this?
no, not a resolution, but staff does act on the direction of council as a whole. role. So I would look for support from council for Mr. Barbeau to work with Councillor Nicol and the volunteer groups to come back with a more detailed report to council.
So a show of hands for what Madam Mayor has just mentioned. Looking for direction for staff to start working with the volunteer group. So,
That's
Like-
sufficient.
Yes.
so back to you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for that good discussion. We are now going to move on to the regular portion of our meeting. Item 6.1 is our consent agenda.
It is moved by Councillor Russell and seconded by Councillor Tessier. Be it resolved that the consent agenda for the council and committee of the whole meeting held on June the 4th, 2024 be approved as presented.
Okay, we have 2 items in the consent agenda. Questions or comments on those? Okay, all in favor? Okay, carried. Okay. Okay, and we move down to 6.4, new business.
It's moved by Councillor Tessier and seconded by Councillor Restoul. Whereas council considered a report concerning a proposed discretionary grant policy at the meeting of May the 7th, 2024, and whereas council approved in principle the proposed discretionary grant policy, be it resolved that the discretionary grant policy is hereby approved and shall take effect as of the date hereof, and be it further resolved that the discretionary grant policy shall form part of the West Nipissing Policy Manual.
Okay, thank you very much. Questions or comments? Councillor Tessier?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Will any financial assistance requests that were provided prior to the adoption of this policy need to be voted on before? If they're still outstanding, like No More Tears submitted their financial requests and it hasn't been brought back to council to
To
determine.
you, Madam Mayor, that could be a decision of council, but certainly theoretically, if you're adopting a policy tonight, then that policy stands from the time that you approve any grant. And so even though you might have had a request for a grant, this would be an overlap. Council can override their policies. We don't obviously recommend that, but certainly we still have to do some work with No More Tears on that, so.
Councillor Bonnier?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I thought when we talked last meeting in regards to this policy that all the other requests already made, like CCL, the Old Age Club, I thought it was going to be part of this.
I think we left it open so those ones that the operating funding can still apply through this. We sort of took away that clause that says it doesn't go for operating, so that they can still, the application will come through in the same manner.
Okay. But I thought they were going to be in here as they are part of the operating and not part of the grant, but can still request.
They can still request, yes.
Yeah. But I thought they were going to be listed.
Oh, listed, oh, no, I didn't understand it that way.
Yeah, that was my.
Oh, okay.
What the questions were at, so I thought I would have seen like all the other CCL, whatever, that they already get operational money to obviously operate, but
Yeah.
then, yeah, that's what I thought it would have been part of this, this bylaw or this.
Or policy, yeah. Yeah, I missed that understanding.
Well, that was, so
Yeah,
I'm just,
yeah.
that's why I'm asking the question,
Yeah.
if I misunderstood, but I thought that it would, everyone's gonna be added to this policy. I don't know if other council had it that way, but I guess that's my question, Madam Mayor.
Okay, so I just want to clarify so that I understand what you're trying to understand. So with, say, CCL or the River Valley Golden Age Club or other organizations that we have traditionally, council has traditionally granted funding to, you thought that they would be identified in the policy and therefore would be exempt from having to annually make the request?
Yeah.
I'm not sure, it was that the other understanding of other members, or Mr.
I just
Barbeau,
have to
if
have
you
a
want to?
conversation with Lisa. These are for grant requests, but if there's standing historical organizations that don't make requests and we just renew, do they form part of this policy?
So I was
They're
under,
now having to request,
I was under the assumption they would now just complete the paperwork and that the.
they have to
council
request
could put it all
every
together.
year to be,
They do right now.
okay?
They, with the exception of the CCL, they do right now. They send letters every year to request.
Oh, okay. Well, if they're doing it now,
Sorry, did any? Councillor Restool, take it away.
Through you, Madam Mayor, just had a question, and I think I had brought this up last time, and I'm not sure, maybe I didn't understand, or maybe it wasn't the right response, but I was asking last time about individuals applying, because I don't think we usually provide grants to
I don't.
individuals, usually it's organizations. And I just see individuals a couple of times in the early parts of this, but then when we get into the application, it talks about organizations and groups, so I'm just asking, is there a reason, do we need to have individuals in there because of the municipal act that's referenced and that talks about persons or, and, you know, I haven't always been here, maybe we have given grants to individuals, but I don't recall that ever happening, so just curious why individuals is in there.
Do you see those sections?
It's right, it's
Oh,
an
it's
objective.
one line.
Under objective and scope on the first page of the policy.
And then under definitions and discretionary grant, it has assist individuals or organizations.
I apologize, Councillor Restool. The intent was to take out all the individuals. Yeah, that it was for organizations.
Yeah, so
Just-
would you?
I was just going to suggest, and I'm certainly not an expert in this area, but can we, to not delay it, can we approve it as amended with individuals being removed from the policy?
you can propose an amendment.
Just to
Yeah.
keep things moving, because I think
Yeah.
it seems like everybody is.
It's
okay.
kind of a housekeeping item. It's a good catch for sure.
Um,
But because it's up, because resolution's on the floor, I would ask for a motion to amend just to remove any reference to individuals within the policy. Would that be the appropriate? Okay, so if you'd like to, we'll just, because then we can deal with that. And then if there's another amendment, if there's other issues that we want to discuss, but that one seems pretty clear cut. So if you'd like to make that motion.
Councillor Restool?
Yeah.
And a second.
And a seconder, Councillor St. Louis.
That's to remove all the references to individuals.
So Madam Clerk will write that properly, but amend the policy to remove all reference to individuals within that policy. Yeah, so any questions or comments specifically on the amendment? None, all in favor? That's carried, thank you. Okay, we're back to discussion of the policy itself with that amendment made. Councillor St. Louis?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think I need a bit more clarification on what Councillor Bonnie
Yeah.
was saying. So organizations like CCL or the Golden Age Clubs, they are putting in requests already yearly, right? So if they're putting in a request yearly for, I don't know, a sum of 9,000 for some assistance, and we've been doing it forever, does that now mean that's their one-time use for the year and they will not be able to ask for something different or something else?
Yeah, that's a good question as well. So if we look at an organization, say like the food bank that receives operational support from a council for their rent, if they then came for a request, say of a waiver for a facility rental or something like that, would having the operational support bar them from asking for another kind of support for like say an event or a special, like as the policy is written right now, with that would not be allowed. They have one shot per year.
Correct, and some of the hope was then that if they're planning their year out in advance, ahead of time, that they come with, you know, we want this and we've got this event, and they put it all together so that council can evaluate as much as possible, you know, everything all in one shot. But yes, as it reads now, that's how it reads now, and certainly that's something that we can look at adjusting.
Okay, because I know that would pose an issue, at least for the food bank. I'm trying to think if anybody else also does operational support along with a request for, say, facility fee waiver. I don't know if there would be anybody else except for them that would apply, but is.
I know the CCL would have fell under that this year because that operation and then that fence for their park. Well,
Yes, that's correct too. So if groups are undertaking special projects where they've received funding from other levels of government and are looking for a small amount of support from council, again, that's a great point, Councillor Rivard. The CCL project for the park would have not been included under the policy because they had already received the operational support. Councillor St. Louis.
And I believe, Madam Mayor, also, we're looking at, areas like the Golden Age Club. So I know the one in Cache Bay, we assisted them with the cenotaph and stuff like that. So I think we need to have a look at specific organizations or on how we're assisting them. I don't want to stop some of the organizations on moving forward and, making things better for us.
Yeah, because the council support that some of these organizations receive, they put in a lot of volunteer work. Sometimes they go out and find funding like the River Valley Golden Age Club did recently. And we're just really assisting, and we get a lot of bang for our buck for the work that these groups are doing and the money that they need to bring in from other funding sources. And you would hate to kind of put us in a corner where we're not able to assist, when there's some other good arguments to do so. Did I see another hand up? Councillor Restaurant.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'll put maybe my bad guy hat on here. I like the policy as it is. We have a process with our budget cycle as well, in terms of, being stewards for the taxpayers' dollars. And I think that it's prudent for organizations, if they're doing their annual plans like we do here, to identify what they may or may not need for the upcoming year. And it's work that you got to put in to identify. And I know there's probably the odd situation where something may come up and you'll need to get support to match a grant or match something, maybe a one-off. But I think generally we talk about doing it between June and October because we have our budget process that comes and we want to consider everything fairly. I don't think it's too much to ask of an organization to identify what their needs are going to be for the next year, what their vision is for the organization, for the year, where they may need support. Because this is the bad guy part, I wouldn't want to have every month different grant applications coming in. That's not really our role. We try to help community-based organizations to help community members where we can. But I think I'm going way to the extreme here, but I wouldn't want this policy to be seen as open house and send whatever you want in as long as you're an organization. We'll consider everything throughout the whole year. At the end of the day, it's still taxpayers' dollars that we're responsible for here. And I think if we have a nice, clean process, it helps in assisting those organizations. But multiple per year or whenever something comes up, it might get a little out of hand. And I don't think it does right now. So I think I'm, probably stretching my example here. But I guess my main point is if there's organizations who are looking for support, part of the onus is on them to make sure that they have their vision for the year and how we might be able to be a help to them to assist community members who go to these organizations for service.
Madam Mayor, what I would like so that we're not looking at different places for the information is to have everybody included in this, and we just follow the process as the policy is written right now. And at least we'll have, and we'll know as council who is actually getting funding and how much, and then we can share that money throughout all the West Nipissing not-for-profit groups or organizations that are looking for potential funding or are doing grant applications so that we can help them financially if we need to. So that would be kind of an amendment that I'd like to put here, that we can see everybody what they're getting. And it's actually our working document for any grant or financial help that is being requested by organizations.
Okay, so if we're looking at the form that's been provided as part of the policy, would you want to see type of request and have a third section there for operational support, or like how would you like to see like?
Whatever's the best way to supply, maybe Ms. Craddock can guide us.
Actually, I was just going to look for a bit of clarification, Councillor Gagne. Are you looking to build into the policy a list of who gets funding? Or are you just requesting that council will get a report at some point each year annually of who's received funding? Because if we build into the policy who gets funding, then we don't need an application process. We don't need anything at all, right?
Yeah, because technically I'm just looking to see who's getting funding. Like, if they have to apply and fill out the forms, if they're doing it right now, kind of use the same process, I guess, and because at the end of the year, if nobody applied, and then, like, let's say CCL applies for, like they did for defense, even if they already got funding, technically we could say, we have some grant money left over, and we're willing, but that's kind of my suggestion. It's just I'd like to kind of have a one place to see what everything that's actually coming out of the budget for financial or grant requests.
So I think that, once the policy is administered, and if we get folks that sort of more or less adhering to that deadline of June to October, though it will take them any time, then council is going to get presented to them a budget. Here's the folks that have applied, here's what the cost is, here's the funds that you've got available. How do you want to deal with this? And so you'll see all of those in the sort of approval stage. I'm not sure if that's answering your question, though, Councillor Gagne.
No, I think you're both saying the same thing.
Yeah.
If I may, I think we do provide that list to council as to who's gotten what to date. And then there's new requests that come in, but I think those numbers have been provided to council as far as the free haul request. There's a line item in your budget that basically dictates what was provided to community organizations as grants or as donations. I think that I forget what the name of that line item is, but it's in the budget. So I understand, I think what Councillor Gagne is asking is just a running list of what council approves. So we know month to month and by year end who received what. Some have been, year over year, like Les Filles d'Isabelle, for example, we provide them with some support to help them pay their rent. Same goes with the food bank. And then we've got CCL operating money that council provides every year. And then, we have the one-offs that come in, the free haul rental requests, various special projects that community groups want to undertake, new requests such as No More Tears for support for rent. Cano's an example that have requested donations, or not donations, but grant. And free haul supports as well. So I think to your point, it's a new policy. We can work on providing lists, ongoing lists of how much council's approved and who got what. And then in a year's time, I think, like we've heard for other policies, is to basically, if council wants to tweak it, you can revise it at that time. But I think we need something to start with. And to Councillor Restoul's point, the timeline of June 1 to October, whatever the date says, it'd be nice to have all the requests in at the same time so that council can budget an amount but as we know, things happen throughout the year. And organizations come up with funding opportunities for themselves, such as the Cenotaph and Cache Bay, and then all of a sudden new projects come up. So it's not going to be a simple policy to implement and fix and follow, but I think it's a good starting point.
Okay, thank you. Good.
Okay, I Councillor.
Then I'm just trying to get us to break it.
Okay, well, can I say something? So Just the one place I want to go back to is that operational cost. So we want to make sure that organizations that are requesting operational costs also go through this form. And so that would just fall under financial support as opposed to having it separated out as operational, because financial support could be something like $10,000 for the CCL fence or whatever. So do we want it to be differentiated, or do we just is financial support? Well, because that's where we kind of started with Councillor Gagne, was on the organizations with operational costs. So I just want to be sure that we're clear on that.
I'm okay with that.
You're okay with it just kind of falling under financial support, and financial support is financial support. Doesn't matter whether it's operational or project-based. Okay.
Yeah.
Councillor Resto.
I didn't want to just take us to break. I think I'm through you, Madam Mayor. I agree with that, and I didn't want to be too bad guy. I know, and it's in our policy, right? They can come in anytime during the year. Ideally, they come in within that time frame so we can plan properly. And I was just going to share basically what the mayor said, I think, as well. And to your point, Mr. Gagne or Councillor Gagne, this is a policy on how we do it. I think what we're looking for additionally is during the year, maybe it's reports or whatnot. That's not maybe necessarily policy, but it's a product of the policy. This is how we do it, and then let's get a report on what it's doing. So that was it. Thank you.
Councillor Pellerin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, if we could get a year-to-date list every time there's an application, then we know exactly what's up.
Okay. Any other comments or questions?
Sorry, Catherine.
No? Okay, with the addition of the amendment just made with the removal of any reference to individuals, the motion is on the floor, so I will call it to a vote unless anybody else has anything to say on this. Okay, so would you read the resolution again one more time, Madam Clerk, please?
It is moved by Councillor Tacey and seconded by Councillor Restool. Whereas Council considered a report concerning a discretionary grant policy at the meeting of May the 7th, 2024, and whereas Council approved in principle the proposed discretionary grant policy, be it resolved that discretionary grant policy is hereby approved and shall take effect as of the date hereof, and be it further resolved that the discretionary grant policy shall form part of the West Nipissing Policy Manual, including an amendment to remove references to individuals.
All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Thank you very much. Got another policy in front of us now, 6.4.2, Life Celebrations Memorial Policy. Madam Clerk.
It is moved by Councillor St. Louis and seconded by Councillor Ferrin. Whereas at a meeting held on May the 7th, 2024, Council discussed proposed amendments to the Life Celebrations Memorials Policy 1991/131, and whereas Council concurred with proposed amendments, be it resolved that the Life Celebrations Memorial Policy 1999/131 be amended, and that the amended policy shall take effect as of the date hereof and hereafter form part of the West Nipissing Policy Manual.
Thank you very much. This was discussed in a previous Committee of the Whole meeting. Any questions or comments? Councillor Ferrin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wasn't obviously part of the discussions you had, but I did follow the last meeting. I'm just wondering if council could ever consider maybe doing away with the flowers part and only offering a donation to charity. I think, in my opinion, flowers are outdated, and I think $125 could potentially help a charity much more than giving flowers. And most people now, most families have in their obituaries ask for a donation to a specific charity, and if they don't, then maybe it's just up to us to write to them and say, you know, we'd like to do this. Do you have a favorite charity?
Councillor Pellerin.
Just a comment, very good idea.
Okay. Okay, Councillor Kennedy.
How I read it that, so it's a flower arrangement to a maximum cost of 125 or provide equivalent donation when requested. Is that not the same? That's how I
So
read
the-
it. I agree with you 100%, but that's how I read it.
I interpret the policy as well as being the first.
Flowers
the first
for-
choice is a
flowers for
donation.
donation.
If a charitable group is identified as the first choice to do the donation, or is the first choice to do flowers?
Choice is always to do what the obituary indicates. If there is a directive in the obituary for donation.
But through you, if there is no, and what Councillor Fadden is saying is if there isn't, he's suggesting doing away with flowers anyway, and just do donations. So that's, I think, the point that Councillor Fadden is indicating. So it's not donations or flowers. He's recommending an amendment for donations only.
If you would like to put that amendment on the floor, we certainly can vote on it before we vote on the policy as a whole.
Yes, I would.
Okay. Are you ready for that?
I just got to find the policy to see what I have to amend.
It's short.
Yeah, no, I'm just pulling it up here.
Shall pay for a equivalent donation or a donation.
So shall pay for a donation.
Yeah.
No floral arrangement.
Yeah.
No,
Remove the option for floral arrangement. Donation.
so shall pay for a donation up to a maximum of $125.
Yep. Okay, so there's an amendment on the floor. Do I have a seconder for that, please? Councillor Pellerin? Okay, all in favor? 2, 3, 4, that passes. Thank you. So then we're back to the original motion, now amended to be donation only, no florals included. Councillor Rivard.
Sorry, I just wanted to, would we not have somewhat of a discussion regarding the amendment? Or is
I'm
it just
sorry.
voting on the amendment, just because I was thinking it already says donation or flowers, so if somebody wants flowers, I think it's okay the way it is to just allow it, and then if somebody asks flowers, but.
I'm sorry, that's probably.
I was just wondering, if we do have a discussion regarding that, instead, it's kind of written in that way where we could do flowers, we could do donations, either or, right?
Okay.
Chair,
sorry.
can I be,
I'm sorry.
could I respond to?
Yeah,
Councillor-
sorry, can we do backsies on the? Sorry, that was an error in my chairing, and I do apologize. Councillor Ward. You're absolutely correct that I should open up for discussion before taking a vote on it. So, but let's. Clerk, Madam Clerk, what do I do now?
So
Yeah.
we'll correct the clerk stuff.
Okay,
I think you have a motion to amend a policy
okay,
to remove flowers.
Yeah.
And so that's the motion to amend before you. Then there's a right of debate whether everybody's in agreement to remove flowers or if they'd like some variation of having flowers removed. So,
okay.
so I think that Councillor Fadden's perspective and so seconded is to remove preferences to flowers, and Councillor Rivard is suggesting, well, I'm thinking that both options should stay.
Okay.
So
Does anybody else have any other comment before I reach like to? It's a little messy procedurally, but we'll.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to my comment, that's why I
Yes.
just asked it,
Okay.
but it was just I do believe some people would prefer flowers,
Mhm.
so why not leave that option there? And if they don't want flowers, then we can do the donation, then we got the best of both worlds, but if we remove the flowers, then
Yeah.
that option just isn't there anymore. So I'm not sure if we had jumped the gun there a little bit, I agree with for some people, flowers are not relevant, or they'd rather see a donation, but I know someone when my grandma passed and someone had sent flowers, everyone was very happy, right, at the nice bouquet that they bought her. I couldn't care less, but my mother, my aunt, they loved the flowers, right? And they thought it was a great gesture. the flowers for me, I'm not a big flower guy, right? But my wife would, everyone. So I just think let's leave it up to the family to make that decision, flowers or donation.
Councillor Feve?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just like, I see it very differently. It is, having the two options or one option, I think the municipality would be basically saying we only give to charity because we feel we want to give to $125 to a charity. So I think it's a conscious decision the municipality would be doing. And because my preference is money to charity.
Councillor Restool?
So are we still considering
Yes, whether or not to remove flowers. We did go back.
and I'm just thinking of your comments. Sitting on a couple of charity boards, I know it's getting more and more difficult to raise donations. And I know there's look at our economy, it's difficult, look at, families with kids and costs of sports and those kind of things. So it's tough to do the fundraiser, and then there's fundraisers all over the place, right? So, when you mentioned a donation being the only, I thought, well, that's good because it'll go to a cause that the individual or their family supports. If we're looking at still keeping flowers, can we look at as a amendment, just flipping the two, saying that the municipality will provide a donation on the to the charity of identified, and if there isn't, then flowers will be provided, just to keep it in there, but flip it around. And you see, and I don't read these too often, but you see it more and more often where in lieu of flowers, a donation to X is appreciated. So I think it keeps the flower part there, but it gives the first.
That's the amendment, an amendment to the amendment. So let's deal with the first amendment that's actually on the floor, which is donation only. And if that doesn't pass, I would agree with you that it should be the reverse. So the first go-to is a charity donation and only in the absence of any identified charity. So but we need to deal with Councillor Frevin's amendment first. Councillor St. Louis?
I think that we're thinking too much of this in my mindset. Let's do what the family wishes. It's that simple. And if the family has a new obituary, flowers and or a donation or donations only or let's respect the wishes of the family. To me, it's that simple. I don't think we should put it on staff to make that decision, donations only. And we shouldn't put it on staff of, well, they have donations and flowers. What are we going to? Let's just respect the family. And I agree, if we amend the amendment, that donation should go first. But my personal opinion is respect the family's choices and what's written.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on the amendment itself? Sorry. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll vote now. We'll revote, like we did do backsies, on the amendment, which was to change the policy to donation only. And barring that, I would imagine that either Councillor St. Louis or Councillor Restool will propose another amendment if that amendment. But let's go with the amendment from Councillor Ferrand, which is donation only. All those in favor of changing the policy to be donation only with no option for florals? Okay, that is defeated. So we're back to the original policy. Councillor St. Louis.
Mr. Councillor Restool was too slow, so I would like to make an amendment that the policy states that donation will be considered first and followed by flowers if the family so chooses.
Okay, so if no charitable organization is identified, then it goes to flowers.
Correct.
Okay, so that amendment is now on the floor. I would like to open the floor to questions or comments specifically on the amendment to change the order where preference is given to donations.
Can we get a second?
So our seconder is Councillor Restool.
I just didn't want to be slow again.
Yeah. Okay, and I will, sorry, with the seconder in place, I will open the floor for discussions on that. Anybody have any further to add to that debate? Perfect. So that amendment is on the floor. I will take a vote on Councillor St. Louis' amendment. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. And then we're back to the original motion, which is to expect, like, the policy itself is like 75 words. So we just talk more than the policy is actually written. But we're back to the motion to adopt the policy itself as amended by Councillor St. Louis. Any further discussion on the policy itself before? Councillor Restoll.
This is just, I just want to give kudos to staff because I had asked, or requested if we could put kind of more gender neutral language in it, and I
Yes.
appreciate that that's in there. So I just want to say thanks to staff for that.
Thank you very much. Okay, anybody else? Okay, all those in favor? That policy is adopted. Thank you, carried. With that, we are at 8:01. We will take a motion for a brief recess. Councillor Gagne, Councillor Tessier.
It's moved by Councillor Gagne and seconded by Councillor Tessier at approximately 8:01 PM. A motion was tabled for a 10-minute recess.
Okay, all those in favor? Carried. Thank you. So, welcome back. Thank you for indulging us in a short break there. We're at item 6.4.3, which is revisions to banking policy 2008/375.
It is moved by Councillor St. Louis and seconded by Councillor Ferrin. Whereas at a meeting held on May the 7th, 2024, Council discussed proposed amendments to the banking policy 2008-375. And whereas Council concurred with proposed amendments, be it resolved that the banking policy 2008-375 be amended and that the amended policy shall take effect as of the date hereof and hereafter form part of the West Nipissing Policy Manual.
Okay, thank you very much. So this was discussed at committee. Does any member of council have questions or comments in regards to this item? Seeing none, I will put it to a vote. All those in favor? Carried. Okay. The next item is 6.4.4. I have declared through proper channels of pecuniary interest in this, so I will pass the chair to our Deputy Mayor, Councillor Resto.
Thank
It
you,
is-
Madam Mayor.
It is moved by Councillor Ferrin and seconded by Councillor St. Louis. Whereas at a meeting held on May the 7th, 2024, Council discussed proposed amendments to the Mayor's car allowance policy. And whereas Council concurred with the proposed amendments, be it resolved that the Mayor's car allowance policy 2003-206 be amended and that the amended policy shall take effect as of the date hereof and hereafter form part of the West Nipissing Policy Manual.
Thank you for that. So as was mentioned in the previous resolution, this was discussed at council committee meeting previously to tonight. So it's in our packages here for review and acceptance through vote, updating our policy that's obviously well dated 2003 to include the amount at 580 within the policy. Questions or comments from council members? Seeing any, all those in favor? That's carried. Turn it back over to you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to 6.4.5, exemption from the procurement bylaw for community services.
It is moved by Councillor Ferrin and seconded by Councillor St. Louis. Whereas bylaw number 2016-89 being a bylaw to establish purchasing policies and procedures for the West Nipissing municipality provides that purchases over $25,000 shall be advertised in the form of a request for quotation, request for proposal, or request for tender. And whereas the 2024 capital budget for Community Services Department included the acquisition of a light vehicle with a budget allocation of $35,000. And whereas it has been determined that no suitable vehicle can be procured below the $25,000 threshold, and Council has, at its meeting of May the 21st, agreed that the formal advertising process may be waived due to the difficulty in acquiring a used vehicle in the formal process. Be it therefore resolved that the provisions of bylaw 2016-89 for purchases exceeding $25,000 be waived up to the budgeted amount of $35,000 for the one-time purchase of a light vehicle for the Community Services Department.
Okay, again, discussed in the committee at last meeting. Questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, the sweeper vac truck, 6.4.6.
It is moved by Councillor St. Louis and seconded by Councillor Ferrin. Whereas at the meeting of May the 21st, 2024, Council discussed the option of leasing a Vector truck in place of proceeding with the purchasing a combination sweeper vac truck as was contemplated in the capital budget. And whereas Council agreed with the recommendation to lease a Vector truck for a 6-month period on an annual basis, be it therefore resolved that the sweeper vac truck purchase be removed from the 2024 capital budget, and that for the municipal water and wastewater, and that municipality shall proceed with the leasing arrangement.
Okay, questions or comments on that item? Okay, all those in favor? Carried, thank you. Resolution seeking support for Champlain Bridge rehabilitation.
It is moved by Councillor Ferrin, seconded by Councillor St. Louis. Whereas the Champlain Bridge, located on the Kings Highway 17, west of the town of Sturgeon Falls in the municipality of West Nipissing, is an integral infrastructure to the Trans-Canada Highway network and also serves as a connecting link to Highway 64. And whereas Highway 17 is a critical link to the Trans-Canada Highway network with an annual daily average traffic of over 14,000 travelers. And whereas the majority of the traffic is provincial traffic using the Trans-Canada Highway for transporting goods and services in Ontario, which, if shut down or restricted, would result in a 123-kilometer detour. And whereas in 2021, an agreement was entered into between the municipality and the Ministry of Transportation for the design of the rehabilitation or replacement of the Champlain Bridge, which design indicated that the bridge should be replaced at the anticipated cost of $30 million. And whereas the municipality of West Nipissing does not have the financial resources to undertake a project of this magnitude without assistance, and whereas the province has previously recognized the financial burden placed on municipalities forced to maintain provincial infrastructure by removing the burden of the Don Valley Parkway and the Gardiner Expressway from the City of Toronto, be it therefore resolved that the province of Ontario recognize the Champlain Bridge as critical provincial infrastructure and assume responsibility for its replacement. And be it further resolved that if the assumption of the bridge by the province cannot be undertaken, that the province provide financial and operational assistance to the municipality of West Nipissing for the undertaking of the replacement of the bridge. And be it further resolved that all northeastern municipalities served by Highway 17, as well as the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, the Rural Ontario Municipalities Association, the Ontario Good Roads Association, and the Federation of Northern Ontario Municipalities be requested to support the municipality of West Nipissing's request by submitting letters of support to the Ministry of Transportation.
Okay, thank you. I'll just add a little bit to this. This is a discussion that Mr. Barbeau and I had after our last delegation with the Ministry of Transportation at Ontario Good Roads, and then subsequent to the FUNOM conference in Sudbury, where I did manage to bring the issue kind of to the attention of the other Northern Ontario municipalities. This is kind of a next step in seeking the support of those municipalities to add to our voice in our advocacy efforts with the Ministry of Transportation. So following this, letter will be prepared by myself and the appropriate mayors along the Highway 17 corridor and other municipalities that would be impacted. Will be sent a letter along with the resolution looking for support from other municipal councils, just as a background to that. Questions or comments on that item? Councillor Perrin?
Thank you, Madam. Just curious, where did the number 30 million came out of?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I believe that was one of the assessments on a revised assessment for the design of the bridge. That was the most recent assessment by the engineering firm that was retained by us and helped fund it with actually MTO's Connecting Link funding.
Yeah, I was just thinking, like, we got a bid of 2 million on the Eugene Bridge, and this at 30 million seems way too low. Just saying.
You might be right, I hope you're wrong.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor. Are there any other questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor? That's carried, thank you. Okay, a couple of noise bylaw exemptions, 6.4.8.
Is moved by Councillor Carrier and seconded by Councillor Gagne. Be it resolved that Council authorizes an exemption of the West Nipissing noise bylaw 1999-75 made by Emily Vézina for an outdoor wedding celebration to take place at 165 Canal Road in Sturgeon Falls on Saturday, June the 8th from 3 p.m. until 1 a.m.
Okay, questions or comments? Councillor Rivard?
Other than just thank you through you, Madam Mayor, not take up too much time, but I never really read these when I see them on the agenda, but I just think it's pretty cool that somebody that I haven't heard of for over 20 years is getting married, so that's pretty neat. I wish you a wonderful wedding. So just that's exactly.
Thank you so much. Congratulations. Any other questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor, please. That's carried. Thank you. Number 2.
It is moved by Councillor Pellerin and seconded by Councillor Gagne. Be it resolved that council authorizes an exemption to the West Nipissing Noise Bylaw 1999-75 made by Jessica Foy for an outdoor wedding celebration which will take place at 66 Fillon Road in Verner on Saturday, July the 13th, 2024, from 5 p.m. until 1 a.m.
Okay, thank you very much. Just to cut Councillor Rivard off there, I'd like to offer congratulations to Jessica and Kevin, and any other questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor? Carried, thank you.
It is moved by Councillor Gagne and seconded by Councillor Pellerin. Whereas a request for proposals were sought for the non-union council compensation review, and whereas 9 proposals were received, and whereas council concurs with the recommendation received, be it resolved that the proposal for the non-union council compensation review be awarded to Pesce and Associates for the sum of $25,200, being the highest scoring submission meeting all specifications.
Okay, thank you very much. I cannot remember when this came to council originally. I think it was in November, December, maybe January.
Oh, yeah.
So it was a little while ago, but for those of you who were here, there is a memo in the package that shows the it's on this process. I will open the floor up to questions or comments. Put it to a vote.
I have a few questions, Mayor. It says here, non-union, is that all non-union staff, non-union, that are part of this evaluation? I can't remember.
Sorry, Ms. Craddock.
It does. I exclude the library because they have done their own situation, and I excluded our seasonal and lifeguards as they've kind of got their own structure, but the remainder of the non-union, yes.
So how many people are we looking for non-union? Do you have an idea how many people it covers?
Oh, I should have that number. It's about 30 different job descriptions or unique positions. But there are some that we've got multiple people in the same position, but it's going to be in that slightly higher than 30.
32.
Yeah.
Madam Mayor, are they doing job description evaluation also, and I guess comparative, or the scope for job description isn't in there?
Not the scope for redesigning the job descriptions, but just how our job description might compare to a similar type job in a different municipality, and therefore what the comparators are. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, I'll just follow up with a couple of questions that are related to the questions that Councillor Gagne asked. The non-union positions, those include managers and director levels. What about supervisors, say public works supervisors? Are those unionized or non-union positions?
Well, through you, Madam Mayor, there's one position that's a supervisor, but he's in a management role, and then we have coordinator positions such as our community development and officers and that kind of thing as well, which are included in the scope.
So the economic development officers and the community services officers are non-union positions. Okay. Other questions or comments? Okay. I had just a couple of here. When we did the CAO compensation review last year, what was the price for that, and how does it compare to what we're paying for this new review?
It was actually just $20,000 for the CAO review.
Okay. And for the CAO compensation review, the consultants had identified a set of comparator municipalities that were used to do that. Is the same set of comparator municipalities going to be used to conduct this report, or will it be a new set as determined by the consultants?
What I provided to the consultants is that I would give them the comparators there, but I do expect them to actually be verifying or vetting or establishing a set of comparators that to review.
Independent review.
Yeah.
And what is the general timeline that's expected for completion of this project?
It was starting now, expected to be finished November, I believe, this year.
Okay. Those are my questions. Any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, I will put that to a vote. All in favor? Carried, thank you. Okay, we do have an addendum for this evening, which was sent by email and did not receive that prior to the meeting. I believe a printed copy was placed on everybody's desk. So item 8.1, award for rehabilitation of blank 24-25.
It is moved by Councillor Paladin and seconded by Councillor Gagne. Whereas a request for quotation was awarded to GIP Interpaving for the rehabilitation of the connecting link Phase 1 in 2023. And whereas the municipality of West Nipissing was successful in securing $274,752 in connecting link funding, which is a time constraint from April 2023, which is time constrained from April 2023 to March 2025. And whereas council agrees with the proposed recommendation to expediently move forward with the award of the center lane rehabilitation of Front Street after considering the various key factors, including time constraints of the funding, the improved life expectancy of completing the resurfacing as one project, and the recent competitive bid process, be it therefore resolved that council approves the award of the rehabilitation of the connecting link Phase 2 Front Street Holditch to Michaud be awarded to GIP Interpaving for the amount of $300,000, meeting all of the specifications.
Okay, so there is quite a detailed in the information there for council. Does anybody have questions or comments on that item? Councillor Gagne?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. So the Phase 1, are they doing like all the way to Courcelles? If I'm not mistaken,
No.
or are we stopping at Michaud for Phase 1 also? So what happens to the pavement that's currently missing going to all the way to Courcelles? There are some spots there, there's no pavement there. There's missing pavements, like there's holes there. Not like big holes, but it's kind of looked like they resurfaced, but there's a layer missing.
It's like all of Highway 17 to 7.
Okay.
So I guess that would be addressed in a future year, though, those.
And we continue sort of patching and doing kind of, cutting out chunks and keeping it live. It was determined at the time when we did the first application that the Holditch to Michaud, because of where the catch basins and the curves was the more critical piece.
Okay.
Yeah.
I do have a question. I'm sorry, Councillor Holder.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just wondering, that seems that was done not too long ago.
So we did Front Street sort of in two phases. One of the phases was 2012, and I don't know if the next phase was 2014, but yeah. And we actually had about a 7-year life expectancy when we did it because it was just a real shave and pave for the dollars we could do at the time.
Through you, we also had an issue, as a lot of municipalities are facing, and we had to have a hole back, but the quality of paving, didn't meet some of the specs, so we had to have a hole back. So, and we're not immune to that. It's happening throughout the province. You'd hear that at OGRA with paving, and so it was a problem. It's a problem project.
Just one more thing. Typically, what kind of warranty is it on stuff like this?
5 years.
So when we have a project, we usually do a standard holdback that's sort of a 1-year warranty on a standard holdback. As Mr. Barbaro said, on the second phase that we did, we had problems and we actually had a 5-year holdback on it and made them come good on some of the repairs on it. But that's what our typical, kind of warranty for the initial installation is.
So in general, we'll test, right? They'll test the quality of the pavement that went in. Again, we ran into some problems as well with the Dutrazac Road back in the time as well. And so when we don't get the quality, it's like, when we test it and it doesn't come up and they've already done it, it becomes a really different product. It becomes a legal thing. So we keep the hole back for a period of time, saying either you redo it or whatever. So it's a negotiation with the companies.
And our portion, like, let's say for the bridge is 10%. Is that the same case on here?
Yeah.
So our portion would be like 27,000?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Tissy?
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you. So in 2023, what was the amount for the connecting link for the rehabilitation of Front Street?
So in 2023, our application was for $1 million project, or just over $1 million project with, again, that was just the curb lanes because we're doing all some manholes and catch basins that we had originally applied for. And so with 10% being municipal cost.
Okay, so that they didn't do the repaving of the, okay.
The center lanes, no.
And I just have one question. So the contractor, GIP, has been contacted and they're amenable to adding this to the scope of the work for the price that's there?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Great, I will put that to a vote, please. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Okay, with that, the regular portion of our meeting is closed. I will this week as we are running a little bit late and still have to go to. So with that, I will take a motion to proceed into close.
It is moved by Councillor Carney and seconded by Councillor Paladin. Be it resolved that we proceed into closed meeting as authorized in Section 239(2) of the Municipal Act to discuss the following: the security of the property of the municipality or local board, and advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purposes concerning permanent staff.
Comments? All those in favor? Okay, thank you very much.